Right, welcome everyone to the November Ops Engineering demos. This is the EMEA AMER edition. It is Wednesday, November 3rd. We have a few demos, it looks like, today. To start off, Adrian Tomas is going from the runner team is going to be doing a demo about blue-green deployments. So if both of you are ready, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So our plan is that I will first quickly say what we are going to do, then Adrian will go through the technical process of making the deployment. And at the end, we will describe what it changed on our runner fleet and why this is a big improvement for what we are doing with the infrastructure. So in a very, very short, we will skip a review of a merge request that normally starts the process. This was already done. We will merge a merge request that updates one part of a deployment for the private runners. It will be the green deployment this time. Then we will run two chatops commands to push the deployment and see how it's going on the dashboards and in the CI pipeline outputs. So Adrian, if you are ready, then
yeah,
your turn.
I can get started. All right. Let me share my screen. Okay. So can all of you see my screen correctly? Do I need to zoom more? Looks like I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, so we have this AMER that's updating one part of our runner fleet to the latest release. So we want to update the private charge and the green deployment to 14.4. So this happens in Chef. So we are updating the role definition for this part of our fleet from 14.3 to 14.4. So I'm going to merge this. Yep, should be merged. I'm going to wait for this to be applied in Chef, and then we're going to be able to run the deploy. Hopefully that shouldn't take too long. I guess while this happens, I could show the dashboards we're going to look at. This is share. Let me find private. There you go. So this is our deployment dashboard for the private charge. So what I'm going to do is once the Chef server has our change, I'm going to start up the green deployment. Currently, we are running the blue deployment, and it's currently processing jobs. So I'm going to start up the green one. And then what would happen in a normal deployment is we would shut down the blue deployment. Now for the demo, I'm just going to shut back down the one I just started. So you're going to be able to see this in the dashboard here. almost ready. Okay, so that's ready. So the deployment happens on in ChatOps. So we do this from production channel. And so we have slash commands that is /runner. And we say run start and then the shard and the deployment. That's correct. And so this is going to start a CI pipeline that's going to run an Ansible command that will connect to all our private green runners and first execute chef and then start the GitLab runner on those instances. So I'm just waiting for it to reply.
I guess while we're waiting, does anyone have questions so far about what they're seeing?
Okay, so you should have reply now. Yeah. So here's the reply. Executing start on private green. So this happens in this CI job. And we see that we already also have the link directly to the deployment dashboard pre-configured to what we have to look at during the deployment so that we can make sure it's going correctly. So the CI job execute in a runner that is completely separate from our regular infrastructure. So it exists in a Kubernetes cluster in GCP. That's separate from our infrastructure, so we don't, run a job on the runners that we're trying to deploy on. And if there's an outage, it's also separate. Also, I believe it's one of the first time we use the Kubernetes executor for kind of production workloads like GitLab. So. Okay, so you can see it's re-enabling Chef, it's running Chef. So this should take a minute. So Ansible doesn't print any output while it's running the task. It only prints it when it's finished. So that's why we have no output at the moment. Okay, so we can see that Chef has successfully executed. So we have a bunch of output. Let me skip through that. There you go. And at the end, it's enabled the GitLab runner service and started the GitLab runner service. So now we should see here in the dashboard, if I refresh, we see that we now have the green instances that are reporting. And they should begin picking up jobs at some point. There's some delay in the metric, that's normal. And so I'm not going to wait for this to actually happen. I'm just going to stop them now. And this happens using, again, the same command, stop private. And so in a production scenario, we would say blue here. I'm just going to stop what I just started. And then the stop job is what's actually going to take a long time because we have to wait for all the jobs that are currently executing on the runner that it could have picked up right now from the demo to finish. And we have multiple hours of timeout for these. So it takes a really long time. But we can see in the CI job, once it started executing, we will be able to see the progress of what it's doing. So how many jobs are still running in the infrastructure. And then once every job has finished, then the runner is stopped and we go back to the initial state of Chef being disabled and the runner service disabled as well. So yeah, that's, I guess that's the demo. Maybe I can leave the screen running so we can see what the progress looks like. And then Tomas, you can say a few words about why this is a good thing and how it changes our deployment process while this is happening.
Okay, thank you for showing us how the process looks from the technical perspective. Now, as for how it improves our management, as Edwin already said, when we stop the runner, we have something that we name Graceful Shutdown, which means that we can stop runner immediately. We need to wait for it to finish all of the jobs that are already been started before we terminate the process. Otherwise, stopped over the runner would impact users, their jobs, their experience of how they use GitLab CI. Because we define that the job may be running for up to 3 hours, the graceful shutdown may also take up to 3 hours to finish the run. Now, previously, how we manage the deployment, how we still manage the deployment of the shared runners, the public ones on the gitlab.com, is that we were doing this graceful shutdown one by one, each runner manager after the previous one finished, because we couldn't take all of them down. This would make GitLab CI not available for anyone who is using the shared runners. Now, 3 hours of the deployment deadline times 5 runner managers that we have. This means that we could have 15 hours of the deployment, which is what is happening, right? It usually takes around 10 to 12 hours to deploy the shared runners fleet. The second problem that we had for a very long time was that the deployment was depending on the local machine of the engineer that was handling the deployment. So only, let's say that I was doing the deployment, only I could see the progress. If I had any networking connection problem, if my laptop have died in the middle, it was interrupting the whole deployment process. With the blue-green, we can totally change that. Like, you can already see that this is happening in the CI job. So no more dependency on the local deployer laptop. It's all done in the cloud. Second thing is that we maintain 2 copies of the infrastructure. We start one full copy of, in this case, the private fleet by enabling the inactive deployment. And then we can shut down the previously active deployment, all of the runner managers in the parallel. Because we had 2 of them, we started a new 2 runner managers that start picking jobs. We don't need to do it one by one. We can start both private runner managers from, in this case, the green deployment at the same time. So the full duration of the deployment will be limited to these 3 hours of the job timeout. Looking on the big picture, it will shorten our deployment from about 12 to 15 hours each time we wanted to change the version of GitLab Runner, for example, through max 3 hours, where most of this time is just waiting for the CI job to finish, while the new fleet using the new runner version or Docker machine version or new configuration, anything that required restart of the process, being available immediately, which help us improve the our resiliency when we are fighting with any incidents. And also is a first step for us to be able to introduce continuous delivery of GitLab Runner, which is still using the old strategy of feature freezing, tagging RC versions, testing them on the infrastructure. All of that is happening because the deployment process is a real pain. And we are unable to quickly check if what we would like to tag as a stable version is really working. With that, we will be able to switch from deploying 2-3 times a month to deploy it once a week, maybe once a day at some moment, partially automated, and have a full continuous delivery of the runners.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, I guess you've seen already, but like you can see here the output of everything that's being shut down currently. And so those runners that we are shutting down at the moment, they are not picking up new jobs. And so if we wanted to deploy the new version, then the runners that we had started at the first part of the demo would be handling the traffic already. And so deploying the change would have been almost instantaneous. So which, as Thomas had said, well, helps us deploy faster and respond faster to incidents. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about how the Graceful Shutdown works internally. Does that mean we set the runners to inactive and then we wait, or how does that work?
So so the runner has a special signal that we send to it to say, well, stop picking up new jobs and finish what you're currently executing. And so we do this through systemctl. We have a Graceful Shutdown script that will say, okay, then first send the signal to the runner to stop processing and shut itself down, and then stop the runner service, and then unprovision any virtual machines that you had created in GCP, and then after that we can say it's stopped. So yeah, so this is handled by the runner itself.
Is this the same process that happens when you delete a runner from the UI, for example? Or when you pause it?
Deletion from the UI is a totally different thing, because you only delete the reference local entity stored on GitLab side, which means that the authentication token no longer exists. This runner may still exist. It will still try to ask GitLab for new jobs, but it will fail on the authentication.
It will fail.
It will be able to finish all of the jobs that were started, because a started job, when it updates the job status, trace, works with artifacts, it uses a token that is unique for every job, but it will be not able to take any new job from GitLab. However, it doesn't stop the runner process. Runner process still exists and still tries to work how it was configured.
Yeah, what happens in the GitLab UI is only related to the database, so the states in Postgres of the runner infrastructure. But yeah, the infrastructure stays behind.
Could it make sense to add this as a feature so that the UI administrator can trigger a Graceful Shutdown from its guide?
could certainly be done. I'm not sure how big of an effort it would be, but we would have to change it so that it doesn't delete the entry in the database, so that the runner can still access the API.
Like,
Because when you delete the entry in the database, then you lose the authentication token.
yeah.
There is also a case of runner running as a system service. Like you can install runner in foreground, or you can install it as a system service. And then you usually manage that through systemctl, runc, sysv, whatever is the system service for your OS and distribution. And now runner itself, okay, we could send an information through API, like please initiate the Graceful Shutdown. But then if it's installed as a systemd service, systemd will recognize that the process was terminated and it should still work. So it will restart it. Because system management, service management is something outside of the process. This is my personal opinion. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to allow runner itself to interact with that while there is an administrator who owns the system service configuration and may have a different opinion than someone who sees an option in the UI to stop. So these are things that need to be considered if we would like to go this way. It's definitely possible to initiate the Graceful Shutdown because this happens inside of the runner, but there may be something outside that will try to restart it. Like when you deploy runner in Kubernetes using our Helm chart or any other deployment method, you usually also deploy a Kubernetes deployment. When you will send a stop, the process will be terminated, but then Kubernetes will see, oh, I had runner pod, I don't have it anymore. I will recreate it because I was supposed to manage 1 to 10 replicas of runner process.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because I find that this kind of feature could also be useful for administrators, like during deployment and also to upgrade the runners. So it's interesting to think about how we can bring this to the product. That's why I raised the question.
I mean, it could be useful to initiate a graceful shutdown, maybe not a shutdown, but like to be able to say from the UI, stop processing new jobs, and that would certainly be useful. But then the runner process would have to stay alive in order for systemd or Kubernetes to not restart it. I guess we could do it this way.
For that, we already have the pause option. We can mark the runner as paused. When runner asks for a job, GitLab will not send anything new.
Yeah, good point.
One question I had was, first off, Adrian, Tomas, thank you for demoing. It is extremely exciting going towards blue-green deployments. One question I had was, as you were going through this process, were there any things that you encountered that were challenges that you didn't expect, or things that you're thinking about for future iterations on how to improve on this? Just curious on any takeaways that you had by this transition.
Well, we have 3rd of November, the first POC of this blue-green was done in April. So it's almost half year of working towards migrating us there. We are not yet. It's probably a week more before we will be able to migrate the last runners. So yeah, there was a lot of challenges that we had. Some technical ones, some operational ones. We need to first discover how to do that, because previously the runner managers that we had were few manually by hand created VMs in GCP. And we had to figure out how to manage that through Terraform, how to integrate that with how the infrastructure is using Terraform at all. As for what to do next, we have an epic that tracks things that we moved out of the critical path for migrating the load. We already have 4 or 5 issues about things that we will need to improve after the initial deployment will be done. So this is a thing that already took a few months, and it will take more time of improvements, making things simpler, automating some of the parts of the deployment, whatever will be applicable for any automation.
Great, thank you. Were there any other questions for Tomas or Adrian before we move on? Okay, Darby, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about incubation engineering and introduce a few of the team members to the group.
Remember me? So I thought I'd pop by and see what was going on over here. And since the agenda was a little light, I thought it'd be a good chance to just kind of chat about incubation engineering a little bit for anyone that doesn't really know what's going on. I threw a few notes in the agenda, so I'll just share my screen if I can find it here. I think it's this one. Yeah, you can all see that. Cool. So if you're not familiar with this, incubation engineering is a new department at GitLab, and we're basically focused on projects that are like future sort of opportunities that we see. So these are things that, you know, are not necessarily like immediate customer needs. I think they are, but they're sort of like newer areas of the product. And so the way that this is being approached is through this SEG model, so the single engineer group model. And it's what this really means is like it's an engineer that's also a product manager, that's also a UX person. So we're kind of tasked with doing all of it and figuring it all out. So you can read about it in the first link here in the handbook. That's the handbook page. And if you want to catch up with what's going on, we have a Slack channel too. And then I've listed out, so there's five groups going on right now. So Sri is doing the 5-minute production app. And this is actually something that's been going on for a little bit longer, but it's sort of grown into its own thing now. It was a bit of a side project of DZ and Sri last year. And then the rest of them are pretty new. So Yanis is starting with the Jamstack. Eduardo is working on MLOps. Joe's working on APM. And I'm working on DevOps for mobile. I don't have a short name for this one because if you just say mobile, people think it's like a mobile GitLab app, which is not what it is. It's actually for like building, helping teams build their mobile apps more efficiently in GitLab. So any questions on any of that? Okay, cool. I'll give you kind of an example of like how we work too. So this is a little bit different than how other teams work at GitLab. We're not kind of like using that same monthly cadence and putting things in the release post and stuff like that, because some of the stuff that we work on, some customers may use, we may scrap it after a little while. There's not like a we don't have like a totally clear sort of vision of what it's going to be. So what we do is we work in kind of like weekly iterations, and we do these demos each week. So I have a tab open here, one of these. Yeah, so this is the DevOps for mobile demos issue. And so what we've got here is like these recordings that I've done each week. And then there's a link to an issue that talks about like what was going on in that week's particular work. And so these get put out every week. We post them in our Slack channel, and they're on GitLab Unfiltered and things like that. And so let's see, this was, I guess this was a couple of weeks ago. But basically this is kind of detailing out the stuff that I've been working on. And so I'll go through just like one feature real quick, if it's at all interesting to folks. So basically, when you want to build a mobile app on GitLab, it's kind of hard. You got a bunch of like dependencies you got to deal with. You've got certificates and passwords and environment variables and all kinds of stuff. And so trying to make that process a lot easier. And so the way that I decided to approach that was to actually like build a mobile app. And so where's that? That's this one over here. Yeah, so this is the app called GitLab Unfiltered. So it literally has 2 screens. It's very advanced. So you get a list of the latest videos from GitLab Unfiltered, and then you can click into one and play it. And that's it right now. So I built this in a framework called Flutter, which is, it allows you to compile down to Android and iOS, so you don't have to build 2 different apps. I thought that was a good use of time. So I spent about 2 days learning it, and I'm terrible at it, but I wrote 5 files in Dart, which is a language apparently. But it works, and so it's been actually really great, like opportunity to go through like how the build process works and just how painful it is. And so last week I was very excited to actually get a beta Mac build or an iOS build going. So first off, thanks to the runner team for making macOS shared runners. You've made my life so much easier because that exists. But basically, like what we're using is this open source tool called Fastlane. So Fastlane does like a bunch of stuff for you, so you don't have to script a whole bunch of stuff yourself to make all these interactions work. And so right here is how the beta release to test flight for the iOS version of this app works. And so it's literally like these commands here, and Fastlane is in Ruby, so it's easy if you know Ruby, it's easy to get into it. So, but basically it kind of wraps up all this complexity. So what this command here does, I'll just run through these real fast. Set up CI, because of the way that Apple computers work and the Apple like setup, there's a when you want to do the certificate stuff for making for signing an iOS app, you have to create a keychain on the machine. So you have to create a keychain and then set it to like read-only mode. So that's what that does. There's a whole bunch of like complexity behind that, but you just write setup CI and it makes it simple. So then we use this tool called Match, which is allows us to store our certificates in a Git repo, a private Git repo, and then just pull them into the app or pull them into the build process. And then here, this is how we configure our App Store Connect API. All of these things are like pretty complex, but it's kind of like taking care of all the complexity for us. This is just some stuff to increment the version number. And then we build the app here, and then we upload it to test flight. And so like this is using the Apple APIs that we set up right here. So all of that like makes a lot of it very simple. But the process to get here is like is pretty slow. So what I'm looking into is like ways that we can sort of like streamline all of this, automate it. One of the things that we've been talking about a little bit is like just the idea of project detection and being able to see a project and say like, oh, this looks like a Flutter app. You know, here's a bunch of like pre-baked stuff that you could use to make this easier. So that's just kind of a quick walkthrough of, you know, what we've been working on lately. But yeah, so let's see, did I put the links in here? I'll throw some links in the agenda for this stuff too. And there's also where did I put that? I'm going to link to this sign up form here. So if you feel like downloading and being part of the beta program for this mobile app, you can sign up and I'll add you to the test flight. But we've got it for Android too. I'm still working on that deployment this week. So that's a quick overview. Any questions?
One question I have, Darby, is historically there has been a lot of challenges with deployments as it relates to getting stuff into the App Store. Have you encountered similar challenges? Has it gotten better in recent years? What challenges, I guess, do you foresee, or that your team is working with right now to try to overcome that challenge if they still exist?
Yeah, are you talking about like the approval process?
Yeah, the approval process and getting it there. Is that something that is, as far as getting it to the front door, I assume that part is probably still simple, but are there still challenges that are kind of out of your control that you're limited to?
Yeah, I haven't got through that part of the process yet. So far, we're just up to the beta deploy. So I'm kind of like working through the DevOps lifecycle from the start. And so we're up to, beta deploys and review apps is another feature that we have. But I want to keep going with it because, I think that you feel the pain by going all the way through it. So once I've got this going, then we'll go to like publishing it. And so they'll actually take this app, publish it, and make it public to anyone in the App Store. And then I think going from there to like instrumentation as well would be kind of the next step, because I just want to see what that process is like. And so all along the way, I think there is, things that we can do to make things incrementally better, as well as probably look for like some really big, significant impacts that can be made too. So I will let you know how the App Store approval process is. I'm guessing it's still not great for, someone like me who doesn't really know how to like navigate that system yet.
Sounds great. Did anyone have any questions as regards to what Darby was showing? Otherwise, it looks like in the agenda, Sri, was the intention, Darby, to do one more demo?
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any feedback on the new Mac runners? How did you find them?
Let's see. I don't think I had any, it was really pretty easy to work with. I actually had, while you guys hadn't, it wasn't quite to private beta yet. So I'd gone through the process of setting up my own, and that was very painful. And so then as soon as I got to the shared ones, it was so simple. I think probably the thing that I may want to talk to someone about at some point is in one of the, I don't know if there, I don't know how you would go about making a new sort of Docker image with some pre-baked dependencies or something into one of our Mac runners. Because one of the steps that I'm doing, I have to upgrade Flutter, because it's the one that ships with it is on an old version. And so that's just takes forever. So I want to look into that at some point, but otherwise I think they've been really, really easy to work with. So the biggest problem I have with it is I forget to add the tag, and then it tries to go to the Linux runner.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, in terms of pre-baking your dependencies, I guess that's one of the major pain points of using Mac runners, because since Apple doesn't actually support Docker natively, we don't really have a way to allow people to bring their own dependencies. It's just we configure a Mac Pro somewhere with some dependencies, and that's kind of what you have to use.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't really have a solution to that.
Okay.
At the moment, and how it could look like, but it's one of the major pain points that there is.
Okay, that's good to know. Does the team kind of decide what versions of things that we end up putting on there, or is it some sort of pre-built machine from, I know it's Mac Stadium, right?
Yeah, it's in Mac Stadium. And no, we do our own images, OS images. So we have a repo where we maintain the list of brew packages that we install and that kind of thing. So if you have something you want to add, feel free to open an AMER there. I'll link into the agenda the actual repo where it happens.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah, I'll check that out. Thanks. To answer your question, Mark, I had not told anyone else to prepare any demos. If anyone feels like talking about what they're working on, you're welcome to. But I was just gonna kind of introduce folks and share some of my stuff. But if anyone else wants to, go for it.
All right, since everybody is super quiet, I'll just start off by introducing myself. Nice to meet all of you. My name is Shri. Just started with incubation engineering in the beginning of September. I've been at GitLab since 2019. So I was a solutions architect with the EMEA enterprise team, spent 2 years there, and then made the migration to the incubation engineering team. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Sri. Uh-oh, I think you're muted, Eduardo.
Well, while Eduardo gets his situation sorted out, Joe, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Joe Shaw, another SCG working on the APM stuff, observability stack. And a lot of that is sort of setting up a new infrastructure at the moment for that. So there's not much in terms of what I can demo other than showing a database with some numbers in it, unfortunately. But hopefully at some point soon we'll have some nice Grafana dashboards or something like that that we can show you guys.
Sounds great. Yanis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Yanis. I'm working on Jamstack stuff in the incubation engineering, like everything that's to do with static websites. So I'm working a lot on GitLab pages, trying to improve the developer experience with that a little bit. But I'm also thinking about how can developers deploy stuff to a CDN and things like that, which is a very exciting space here.
Giannis also has the best real background, I think.
And not much longer. I'm moving to Hamburg soon, and that.
All right, we'll make it last.
Or you could take a screenshot of the background and just take it with you.
Yeah, I might do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is working now over here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so hey everyone, my name is Eduardo. I am the SAG for MLOps. I've been in GitLab for 3 months now, so I can now already apply for learning things at this point. So yeah, so MLOps is a big thing that nobody really knows yet what it is. Not even here, not even the community. We're figuring out everyone together. Right now, what I'm doing, my vision for my SAG is to make GitLab a tool data scientists love to use. That is not currently the case because data scientists don't generally use Git the same way developers do for a variety of reasons. One of them, there's not really good support for Jupyter. Well, Jupyter doesn't help itself in general. It's a weird file system. It changes things, it holds state in itself. So one of the things that I'm tackling now is at least to provide diff for Jupyter, so custom diffs, cleaner, so that the data scientists could have code reviews and merge requests and things like that within GitLab. That is not the case right now. It's almost going to production. Well, it is in production, but it's not working really well. We're figuring that thing out. So let me just quickly share my screen just so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So you see over here, this is the regular, so this is a notebook, nothing special on it. Let me see over here. Nothing special over this and most of those, nothing special over this notebook, just a couple of stuff. But any change you make in itself, the file is a JSON file, and in itself, like if you change something, you see here, you have the text, the code base is within a string, a list of strings, and then you have randomly a table over here, HTML table. So parsing this diff is almost impossible. And this is a very small change. What we did, we are now transforming this. This is already on staging. This is the same diff. We transformed this first into Markdown. So it's a lot easier to parse and make sense of what's going on. So this is still the first iteration. We still want to do a lot better job than we are doing right now, but this is already a big leap from what we have. And the community is very excited about this as well. So moving forward, we'll be working a bit with model registries, pipelines for hyperparameter tuning and things like that. So I might be touching a lot of, might be reaching to a lot of different people from now on. Cool.
That's great. Thank you, Eduardo. And thank you for the incubation team, as well as all the demos today and everyone joining. I know we have only a few more minutes, but did anyone have any other comments before we wrap up? All right, sounds great. Well, look forward to seeing you again at the next demo next month. In the meantime, hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.